for a day or so. You feel uncomfortable. I preached. And so he wanted to have Mass. And on Sunday especially, he wanted to have Mass with the people. Because that's, if you're a pastor, you want to be with the people. Bishop Mike knows he says he would minister. And he would know what I'm talking about. And you would too. You offer Mass, and it's just how it Mass is, don't have anything like that. Because you are, Jesus is there. But it is so much more if the people are there. And you and Jesus and the people are together. And so he said, Pope Francis said, I want to go have Mass with the people this first Sunday. And they said to him, well, you want to do it in Minnesota? He said, no. It wouldn't be proper until I'm installed. I'll do it in the parish church of Idaho, the church of Saddam, by the board of Saddam, the gate there, where the Swiss Guard has its quarters. So it gives and of course this Holy Father is so tremendously simple in the very best way. He says, no, I'll go to the parish church here. Maybe there'll be 200 people, obviously there'll be like 12,000 people. And he's inside with these 200, and they realized what was happening, so they had microphones all over. And then to the absolute terror of his police people, after Mass, he goes out into the street of Rome, which is outside of that, and where they can't give him proper control. Anyway, it's difficult that way. That's the only way to ever that we can live with that. But it was the gospel of the woman taking adultery. When Jesus bends down and writes in sand. And Holy Father's homily was based on 2 sentences. You know it now, because you ever return. God never gets tired forgiving us. We sometimes get tired asking Him for forgiveness. I've never heard that before. I know it. We all know it. But this was it was the homily. It wasn't the homily of a great theologian. Although, as I get to read what he says, he is a great theologian. It wasn't the homily of an exquisite scripture man, although when you read his works, he knows the scriptures inside out. It was the homily of a pastor. Somebody said to me on television a couple of months ago, I guess, they said, Benedict, John Paul II, Benedict, and Francis, in a word, what's the difference? So I was there, and the Lord gave me, the Lord is so good to me. He makes me look smart sometimes. I said, John Paul II was a prophet. Benedict was a great teacher. This man's a pastor. This man's a pastor. And they said, they told me that day in Rome, there were more confessions that Sunday than in the memory of man. And so I was talking to someone in New York, they said, Patrick, you see, they said the same thing. When people heard this Pope saying, God never gets tired of forgiving us. He never gets tired of forgiving us. We must never get tired of asking Him to forgive. That's the secret of this man. I'm looking at my clock there. I thought, well, you may fall asleep at Turkey. When there's just some Francis stories. But the reason I want to give you Francis stories is because in today's church, the whole world is looking at Rome. In today's world, the whole world is looking at Rome. They watch what he says, more people who are not Catholic watching this man. Because for some reason or other, they know he's talking not for himself, but for some great mystery. And we know it's the mystery that became incarnate 2,000 years ago. When he preaches, it is, I recommend all of you, if you haven't read it already, his apostolic exhortation. Now, other popes have done apostolic laws and apostolic stuff like that. You see, I'm not a great theologian. But you know, what he does apostolic exhortation. And this great document is even in, the joy of the gospel, the joy of the gospel. And it's him. He sees the joy of the gospel. He's touched by it. He's moved by it. The joy of the gospel. And in there he has these wonderful lines about confession. He yells at confessors who think that they are the judges. Jesus, God is the judge. We should not be. We have to be the executors of his mercy. I was going to say the judgment, that's all right. The executors of God's mercy. And he makes it so clear where it's coming from. This extraordinary man. Just a couple of, I give you four. I did it again. 4 funny Pope stories. 2 concern me. They're the funniest of all, but I'll give you the first 2. First 2, he doesn't live in the palace. He will not live in the palace. He lives in the boarding house. Santa Martha is a boarding house. And that's where people come who have business with the Vatican. And in first, everybody in the Vatican was saying, oh, he won't stay forever. He made a point. He'll move into the palace. Ha ha! He's still, a year and a half later, he's still in the boarding house. And so they finally, after 2 months, they said, maybe he will stay in the boarding house. So they had to do it. They brought more Wisconsin so that it looks at least like, this is a dwelling where the head of the state lives. So he's living in that second floor at Santa Martha. And they had come at the door, they had some Swiss guards, on the roof there, Swiss guards, in front of his bedroom door, in front of his office. He has 2 rooms, and in front of it, in the corridor, in front of the door, is a Swiss guard. And Holy Father goes out around before 6 because he wants to do Mass at 7. He opens the door, the first time the fellow's there, he opens the door, and he sees this Swiss guy, he comes to attention, he's helping him. And Holy Father looks at him, and he says, son, how long have you been standing there? He says, since midnight, Holy Father. He says, since midnight? Aren't you tired? No, Holy Father, that's my job. Come on, aren't you tired? Yes, Holy Father. So Holy Father goes back into his room, lets the kid outside. Comes back 3 minutes later, carrying a shade. He says, sit down. Holy Father was not allowed to. Holy Father says, yes, I know, but sit down anyway. And that story was, every Swiss guy had heard that in 15 minutes. Because they've never had anything like it. And I've seen him go into his house. Once I had to grab him for something that was had to do with Iran. And so I waited where you're not supposed to wait outside when he came in. And he saw me and he looked around. He said they weren't watching me, so he came over. Otherwise they yell at me. They said, whatever, they yell at me. I said, Holy Father, you've got to be careful. So he came over and I told him what I needed, and he said, he gave me the answers. And he goes in, and everybody starts to attention, and he goes to shake the hands. And they have the halberds in their hands, and they have to transport English was a disaster. But he shakes hands with this place, he gets to know him, how are you? And he finds out he's a pastor. He's a pastor. The second story, look at my clock here. The second story is even funny. He's a Jesuit, as you know, and so the Jesuits try to get their own, get their pound of flesh out of him because he's a member of the family. And so they have high schools in Rome, and so they said, Holy Father, would you meet with the graduates of our high school? And he says, yes. He's a Jesuit, what do you say? So they bring maybe like 80 kids. They get all the right names. And they meet with them in a group downstairs in the place where he lives. And he says, they gave me a text to talk to. I read it, and it's very boring. He says, so if I find it boring, you're going to find it terribly boring. So let's just do questions. So for an hour, he answers questions back and forth. And he as you see, sometimes from his answers to reporters, because they will ask him tough questions, and he'll answer. He won't say no. And he won't let his press man say, the Holy Father doesn't want to answer that. He answers it. And people get annoyed at him. Bishops get annoyed. They say, you shouldn't have said that. Well, I'm not sure that's true. I'm sure God's guides. But anyway, he says, the secretary comes in and says, Holy Father, you have a meeting at 11. This should be your last question. He says, okay, last question. So one guy raises his hand and he says, Holy Father, why won't you move into the palace? Holy Father thinks for a moment. And he looks at the fellow and he says, for psychiatric reasons. and everybody started laughing, obviously. And then when everything's quieted down and they're still looking at you, he says, I would go nuts up there all by myself. Okay, now these last two stories are about the Pope.
You got time. Go.
Oh, okay. These last two stories about the Pope concern me. I'm 84, and I'm an old 84. I like to think I'm a young 84, but I'm not. I'm an old 84. And I'm getting to be older and older. Anyway, I was preaching in Rome the day before his installation. It was the 18th of March, which was installed on St. Joseph's Day. And I was offering Mass for, I live with a religious community in an African-American neighborhood right outside Washington. It's a very poor neighborhood, which is good for me because if I can touch the poor, it's good for me. So anyway, the sisters of the community that I live with, the men, but the sisters, they love the sisters, so they love me. So they think they're all my daughters. I had a very prolific father if they were all my daughters. Because there were more than 1,000 of them. So they were celebrating their 25th anniversary, and they asked me to be celebrant to preach something. So it was a great honor, and it was a big deal. There must have been like 200 sisters and ambassadors were there in the countries that they served. And the dean of the college, the Cardinal Theodore E presided. There were maybe 6 or 7 other archbishops there. So I preached in Italian, and for me it was great Italian. I'd written it out, I prepared it and everything, and I said, there's a secretary in the seminary that I live when I'm in Rome. I said, do me a favor, read this over, see if it makes sense. And she read it out, and she came back to me, she said, it makes a lot of sense. It is perfectly the talk of a Spanish-speaking Italian. So I said, fix it, will you? So she fixed it. So I was very happy with it, and I gave it, and it went well, and I went back to the altar. And after about different things, I collapsed. I was fine. I had lunch with a couple of the American cardinals. I hadn't had too much to drink. I went to the sacristy, I was fine. I was kidding with some of the bishop, everything went well, my homily went well. But after the homily, I started to feel sick a little bit. I sort of faint. This is a year and a half, I was only 83. So, finally, I just felt that I was going on, and I was accepting the vows of some of the sisters, and I was starting to shuffle, and I said, I think out loud, but I'm not sure. I said, I gotta sit down. And I started to sit down. Thank God for that, how good God is. Because if I had been standing and just collapsed, I would have hit the marble floor. But since I said, I gotta sit down, I started to sit back, and I fainted. I fainted into the chair. And they brought me beside me, and they couldn't get any life signs. So they thought I was dead. So they gave me the last rites, they gave me, and my mouth was part open, they gave me the host, and they called what do they call them? I don't know what they call them. The guys who come with ambulances. Thank you to those guys. So they came and they started, they basically tried. Yes. And one of the sisters said, "Ooh, you're going to hurt him." And the guy, the Italian guy, was going to say, "Sister, if he's dead, he won't mind." So anyway, I survived. I'm still alive today. They said I need a pacemaker, so they said go home. They said we know you won't want to get it here. It's the hospital with the worst reputation in Rome. It's the one they put me in. Anyway, so I stayed overnight and said to go the next morning, and I missed the installation of Holy Father. So I was staying at the North American College, and that evening I was in bed. And I was feeling pretty good, and phone rang, and his supporter, he telephoned up inside the cemetery, and he says, "There's the strangest phone call." He says, "I don't know what to make of it, but they're looking for you. Would you take it?" So I took it, and there's a lady who said, "Who is this?" I said, "Cardinal McCarrick." He said, "Will you give me your middle name?" I gave him my middle name. He said, "Where were you, Archbishop?" I told him where. "What is your titular church?" I gave it. And then I finally said, "May I ask what this is all about?" So she laughed, she said, "No, don't worry about it, Holy Father wants to talk to you." The next voice, the Holy Father's going, he says, "What happened to you?" They said you weren't at the thing. So I told my secretary, told the whole story. And finally, because bishops are supposed to be spiritually very pious, this bishop might be spiritually pious. And I said, "Well, Holy Father, I'm fine now. It looks as if the Lord still has some work for me to do." To which he answered back, quote, that certainly may be. Of course, on the other hand, it's possible that the devil did not have your accommodation. And I see like I didn't, what do you say? All I could say with myself was, "Oh, I hope that's not an infallible statement." And it was the day of his installation. Flash forward. I was in Rome. I was in the Holy Land when he made his visit. I wasn't part of the papal team. The patriarchs invited me because I'm in the Holy Land like 5-6 times a year to try to make peace, try to talk to people. So we were at Mass in the monument at the sports stadium, and after Mass is over, the bishops, I hung out with the bishops from the Holy Land, all of whom are confused. It's very good confusion. It's a happy confusion that day. And it's good because the situation is so bad there that they weren't confused with each other. So anyway, after Mass is over, I'm working with them, and they've now walked through the same archway about 6 times. So, and then the Holy Father's coming. So I go back against the wall. I don't want to get in his way, and I don't really want him to see me. He had to see me when the Mass is going on, because I was cognizant in front of him. But then, as just as he's passing me, the superintendent of the Vatican Security says, Holy Father, in Italian, Holy Father Cardinal McCarrick wants to greet you. But what did I do? He said, no, I don't want to greet you. So he looks at me and says, oh, he goes over and gives me a big hug, and he starts saying, how are you feeling? I think he hadn't realized that he had spoken to me since I got sick. So he's thinking now that maybe, yes, so he's saying, oh, all right, and everything's going to be very walk here, so I gave him a thought that I said, oh, I'm fine, I'm traveling here, I'm traveling there, I was in China last week, and all the things. And he said, that's good, thank God for that. He turns, he gives me another hug, says, goodbye, take care of yourself. And he turns, and by this time they have the car up right next to him, so they have the door open. And before he gets in the car, he says to the security men around him in Italian, he could see no more than mine. Bad people never die. But I still have great respect and affection for him. I'm just going to leave you with one other thing, and this is especially for the younger people here. He was talking maybe about 2 months ago to a group of young people, and he said, and he doesn't prepare these things, so he prays over them, I should say that. He prepares them in his prayer life. And he said to young people, he said, you know, there are 2 things you always have to carry with you in life. Dreams and roots. Dreams, because you have to be able to raise your minds and your hearts to the things that are above. And roots, that you never forget what you've learned from your parents. Great lesson. It's like as I end with this, it's like the lesson he gave when he was preaching to young married people. He said there are 3 words that you have to follow you all the days of your life in your marriage. And they are, please, thank you, and I'm sorry. I think in our own lives, dear brothers and sisters, if you and I could always keep those 3 words in our minds, in our hearts, please, thank you, and I'm sorry, we'd be happier, and we would make the people we live with so much happier too. God bless you. Pray for me once in a while. Thank you.
Cardinal McCarrick, for God's generosity on measure through your example and your words of encouragement to us. Thank you very much. So we do want to extend generosity to you, Idaho generosity. Of course, you're going to go back east, and then you're going to tell your friends that you're in Idaho, and they're all going to say, do you have any potatoes? And so we don't want you to go home empty-handed. We have lots of Idaho spud bars. And to let you know that there are not only potatoes in Idaho, we have a bottle of Idaho wine for you. And as you eat the spud bars, and drink the wine, you can read the latest issue of the Idaho Catholic Congress.
I may never go home.
Do you have any accommodations for you?
Thank you, Cardinal McCarrick. Appreciate it very much. All right, folks, guess what? We have a second seventh inning stretch. This is great. So let's all stand up. We've had so much fun. Let's all